is this big capacitor or main capacitor. We can call it electrolytic capacitor. Its job is storing electric charges, and there is also another capacitor right there. It's a silver white box right there, and we call that capacitor aluminum foil capacitor, which its job is slightly different than this main capacitor. There is also two transformers here. One is this one and the other one is right there, and the job of these transformers is increasing or decreasing an AC voltage. Usually these transformers have two different coils that we call them primary and secondary coils, and the voltage between these two coils are usually different because the number of loops that they have is different. Another part is this black box right here, which has 3 legs. We call this box a transistor, which is used for amplification. There is also another black box right down there, way smaller than transistor. It's right here. We call this diode, which allows the electric current to pass in only one direction. This direction can be either forward or reverse. There are also some resistors here, this one, that, and there is another one right behind that aluminum foil capacitor. Yes, yeah, you can see them better like that. So only 3 resistors, and there is also terminal of batteries here, which can hold the battery, and we know that battery or cell produce electricity by transforming chemical energy into electrical energy. There is also another part here. It's an LED light or neon light, which acts as an indicator. So when this capacitor is fully charged, this light is on and the coil gun is ready to fire.
Here I have is my rough design of my coil gun. I got the circuit there, I got the switch, the coil, the barrel. Right now it's being jerry-rigged and held up by my wire cutters, and the barrel is propped up by this black wire over here so it can keep it even. And then most of all, I have my trusty marker, which I use to measure inside the barrel the right BB depth. So I'll put that in there. BB's already in there.
I found an old pen and I took apart all the pieces so that the shaft here was empty, and I cut a small portion off of the front of it. Then I took a couple of washers that fit nicely onto the shaft of the pen and used hot glue to keep them in place, and I did this on both ends. I then started to make my coil, which I use this, I believe this was the 22 gauge magnetic coated copper wire, and leaving a long piece to begin with. As you can see here, I started wrapping on one end, doing a single layer all the way across of the coil tightly wound together. And then when I got to the end here, I did a layer coil to the hardware store and found a plastic nut and bolt that fit inside of the end of the pen shaft. and glued the nut to it, and was able to screw in the bolt here as a method or a way of deciding and determining where my BB would sit inside of the pen shaft. Because if I put my BB in here, I then can adjust where it sits inside of this pen shaft one thread at a time by screwing in or screwing out this bolt here. I determined that the farthest distance I would get using this setup here was by having the BB about exactly where the washer is here, so right at the beginning of where the coil starts. I had to take apart a disposable camera, and the circuit board that came inside looks like this. There is the flash here, which I used some nippers here and cut out the flash tube. It was connected here and right here, one on either side of this back plate, the flash back plate. Cut that out and removed it. Took out the battery and discharged the capacitor by putting a screwdriver across it. I then took each side of the wire coming out of my coil, one to one side of the capacitor, another side that goes directly to this switch here, which looked like this to begin with, until I put a washer on it in order to be able to mount it here. I then, going through this switch, put another wire that connected to the other side of the capacitor, the other lead, and then was able to create a way to a sort of trigger for my coil gun. Inserting the cell back into the circuit board, I then had to press the button that's on the back here, and that would start the capacitor charging, which would then illuminate this light here, and when that light was lit, it was ready to be discharged. So I would put my BB, and the BB is inside of here right now. I'd put the BB in there when the light was lit, and then press the button here, and it would shoot my BB. I then took the battery out, discharged the capacitor another time so I wouldn't shock myself, and that was all.